After a night on board, sleeping where we could, we were awakened at dawn by the noise of a loud hailer. The noise was coming from an American destroyer, asking if we were okay and did we want any help. Where were our two officers, I don't know, but we all yelled back to explain our situation. They told us they'd just come back from the island of Capri, which had been evacuated that night by the Germans, and would that be any use to us? Not knowing anything about Capri, it was better than Salerno, so we said we'd go along with them, as long as we went along under escort. Away from the coast we sailed along the Sorrento Peninsula around into the Bay of Naples to Capri, now 100 miles behind the front lines. Benny and I wondered if we'd gone out of the frying pan into the fire, because we'd be so isolated and we couldn't possibly defend ourselves against any serious attack from the sea. We approached the main harbour in Capri. The captain of the destroyer told us to land on the beach and he'd tie up in the harbour by the breakwater. We landed by the sand. The non-tech trucks drove up the ramp onto the promenade to park. The radar vehicles were lined up on the small beach with the diesels nearby for our power supplies. Up the road towards the main town there was the Hotel Bristol, and we suspect it had been recently occupied by the Germans. It had become our billet and our site up above the radar unit for the radio and the wireless section. The sea wall from the promenade had to be knocked down to let the larger trucks get off the beach, but we got our radar working within the hour for the first watch, and the rest of the gang gathered on the promenade. The locals came along handing out wine and ice cream, so we had a welcoming party on the island of Capri. The commanding officer of the destroyer came to see us, and he was escorted by half a dozen sailors holding Tommy guns. He was very, very helpful, and he arranged to supply more fuel and supplies when we wanted them. We told him we need something stuff fairly soon. One sailor said, "He's a great guy, our commanding officer. Do you know who he is?" "No," we said. It was Douglas Fairbanks Jr., the film star. And off they marched towards the destroyer. An hour or so later, an LST came into the harbour with a bulldozer and supplies. They unloaded the supplies for us, and he proceeded to knock down the offending wall on the promenade. And while he was doing this, he chopped up our power cables and telephone cables on the promenade leading from the convoy up to the Hotel Bristol. All the people that were off duty went up to the hotel sorting out their kit and their rooms, and had their first shower or bath for a long time in hot water. It was lovely to have soap and a comfortable bathroom since we're in North Africa, really. Everybody was busy washing their clothes and hanging them out to dry on the balconies. Then for rations we had food, etc., and we were all ready for the next duty. Vic and I went down to the harbour to look around, and we discovered the funicular railway connecting the town to the beach. We got in there on the locomotive and got it to work, and drove it up to the island to Capri town. We walked around the town and had a coffee in a cafe. Everybody wanted to speak English to us. They were glad to be out of the war. We paid the bill for our coffee with English money and American dollars, and the waiter said everybody on the island was short of money and had things to sell. We said we were interested. What had he got? He came along within a few minutes with a Kodak camera, a folding camera in quite good condition, and I bought this for 50 pence. Then he said, "Would you be interested in this?" And he put a Colt revolver on the table. I looked at it. It was stamped London Constabulary. I said, "Is it in working order?" He said, "Oh yeah, it works fine with Tommy gun ammunition." I wonder how he knew that. Well, I bought this for £1 to supplement my Sten gun. He told me how to adjust the Tommy gun bullet so they didn't slide through the chamber and down the barrel. And I was determined to get it working. So down on the beach I snipped the edges of the cartridges and they fitted in the gun very, very well. So at the next maintenance period, Vic and I went to explore the island. We went up to the top, the highest point, to the Villa Tiberius to check on a former German radio station, not a radar station, and we got some quite useful spare parts and components. Well, because it was very, very close to the sea, we have a daily swim and no bother at all. The trucks were only 5 yards from the water. Vic and I hired a little rowing boat from the harbour, and someone told us to go and have a look at the Blue Grotto. We rowed our boat along to the Blue Grotto and went inside. It was very, very interesting. With one of the oars I knocked off a chunk of pink coral to send home as a souvenir. The radar was very busy. We had a good cover over Naples Bay, the sea, Naples town, with Vesuvius to tune on.